what drew me to Roots and All, and the reason that that's taking me a second to think about it, is because the way that I became involved was because I was sitting at home without much to do, and I got a Facebook message out of the blue from Sophina, who I had never heard about before. I didn't know her. I didn't know anybody who was involved with Roots and All. I'd never heard of Roots and All. Um, so, uh, so she reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to be involved. I said I'd talk to her about it and see what was going on. We talked the next day, and I liked what she was talking about, with the goal being to uh, elevate and focus on voices and stories of marginalized groups, specifically LGBTQIA plus and BIPOC stories, without it being focused on the tragedy or suffering of those communities, which so often in theater and in media, you'll find that those groups really only get highlighted or get stories told about them if there's pain. And I'm kind of tired. I think we're all kind of tired of having to see stories about pain. Life is full of pain. We don't need to see it on stage in order to emote or in order to cathartic. So we talked about that, and everybody talks about that. I've heard so many artistic staffs and so many board of directors talking about that. And I've also noticed that so many of those board of directors and so many of those artistic staffs, there's an inauthenticity when the people talking about that, or the groups talking about that, don't have anybody in the room who is part of the communities they're trying to tell stories about. It feels very disingenuous. And when I spoke to Sophina about it, it seemed that the intention and the goal was a much more genuine one. And when I met the staff, it felt very much like it was going to be a more genuine experience and a more goal, because it didn't seem to be usurious or intending to bring somebody in just so that you can sell to your subscribers that, look at us, we're so conscientious, we're so diverse. It's like when, I don't know, big corporations, sometimes with the theaters, it feels like when big corporations have a float at Pride, where you're like, cool, your heart's in the right place, but you're selling me something. So it felt different. And then when I was at that first staff meeting and I heard, I believe it was Jasmine who was talking about the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of what it takes to start a theater and the finances and what sort of steps you have to go through in order to establish a business account with a bank and the statuses that you need to get, is so much. I've heard a lot of people talking about starting theaters, and I've heard a lot of younger people talking about that. And I've also never heard any of them talk about what is actually necessary or going through the steps to get the status, to get all the different steps taken care of, and to get a person on board early on whose job is to generate money for the company. Because so many people talk about the art and about the goals and the dreams of that, but then it sort of falls aside because the money's not there. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but live theater doesn't really make money. I've never really known live theater, especially nonprofit theater, to be something that generates income. The income comes from elsewhere. So it was really wonderful and lovely and refreshing to see that combination of the goal and of the genuine nature of the intention, and to see that coupled with a pragmatism that is not always present. So the goal and the intention and the diversity of the creative team and of the staff and of the board, in conjunction with the know-how to actually get it to work, was something that kept me around. that's the thing that kept me around. Though what it was that drew me to Roots and All, maybe it was just some roll of the dice of fate that drew me to it. The dreams that I see being born through Roots and All are dreams that have been crushed and squashed and put aside for an incredibly long time, and they are not. It sounds bad for me to say that they are not my dreams, but in this context, my dreams are not the ones that are relevant or important. The dreams that I hope will be born are that the art that's created, that is a fusion of different mediums and of styles, suffering might be involved in some of the stories that are told, but it won't be the nature of the story. It will be something entirely different. It will be something that is about joy, or there will be conflict because art has conflict in it, but conflict doesn't mean pain. It'll be this dream of the celebration, or the dream of the acknowledgement, or the understanding, or the dream of a story that is ancient, that hasn't been told, but is interwoven through everything, every fiber of what we've got. And I think that, to touch on my dream within this, is since this past year and a half of the pandemic, where there was no theater, there was no live entertainment, that this is a perfect time for things to change. And I hope and I dream that they will. And I hope and I dream that they will change for the better, because so often things change for the worse. And the worry that I've had is that, because it has been shut down for so long, and because there's been no way to make money, and as much as I hate to keep bringing up money, we do live in America, and money is the language of our country, is that because there was no money, because there was no support, because there was no aid, that the only people who will be around for when things open up again are the people who had the privilege to be safe and to be supported. And I recognize that because of some of my connections, that I have had that privilege, because I've been protected underneath a union at the ballet, so I've been continually able to work. I'm not a dancer. Don't think that I'm a ballet dancer. I'm not. I'm not good enough to be a ballet dancer. I am not strong like them. I am not a professional athlete. But I hope that when things come back, and I think that through Roots and All, there will be that ability to elevate and to change, so that it's not just Thornton Wilder and Our Town, because I don't need to see Our Town anymore, and that it's not the Music Man, because nobody needs to see the Music Man anymore. But that's the dream that I see coming to fruition, that the voices that have not been heard, that the dreams that have not been realized have an opportunity to flourish and thrive, and that Roots and All will serve as a beacon, or as a bastion, to bring people together and to bring stories forward, and to encourage people who, over the course of the past year, who were members of the BIPOC communities and members of the LGBTQ community, to come back to art and to theater if they had left because of hardship over the past year. And I don't know if it's true for other people, but it might be true for me sometimes. And I hope this is true for the people who have unfortunately had to leave theater because of the pandemic and because of financial hardship from that, is that, you know, you can leave theater, but it never really leaves you. So I hope that the people who have left it will find their way back, and I hope that Roots and All will give them the courage or the encouragement to create more.
Hi, thank you for hearing us out. Roots and All Theater is a startup, nonprofit theater organization focused on elevating the voices of historically marginalized and unheard. We do this through a fusion of different artistic practices produced by people of diverse identities. Your contribution will help us further our vision and mission of elevating said voices and serving the Portland community, and we would love to have you in on the journey. Please, you can support us by following the directions in the descriptions below or going to our GoFundMe to support our very first production that'll be held at the Portland Parks and Recreation Centers. Thank you so very much for your time, and we hope to see you soon.